Hi.
Come on down.
Thanks.
How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you. So what you got?
Yeah, so just that as part of Cultivate Care Farms, we're interested in opening up community activities in terms of promoting community wellness. And so a woman, Julia Seibalars, who was a photographer for CNN Health, is working, she was a photography professor at Northeastern, is interested. She's taken some images of our clients with animals and wants to talk about finding your voice through photography.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to offer just a free lecture to the community on a Sunday. Did you say the time was 3 to 4?
It says 2 to 4.
2 to 4, perfect. And because it's going to be a ticketed event, I know we can't have more than 50 people on grounds at once. It would be free but ticketed, and if there was enough interest, we would ask maybe to have like a second showing on the same day, if that would be okay.
Sure.
But so we got approval from the chief of police and the fire department as well.
Okay. No, I mean, it sounds fine to me. I
Okay.
think it's fine. The fact that you got approval from the fire chief or the police chief sounds fine to me.
I'd suggest the only stipulation, not stipulation, but to include it in the motion, which is already documented by the chief, is that there would be no on-street parking. It would all be off-street parking on the premises.
Yep. Okay, great.
So it's off-street parking and no police detail?
No police detail, that's right.
No, I'm fine. I don't have any other questions. I'm good with it.
I'm fine too.
I'm fine.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a special event at 401 Main Street on Sunday, March 29th from 2 to 4. And if there's enough interest, you'd have a second session that day.
Yeah, so maybe we do 1 to 5. Would I need to get new approval for that? Like if we did a 1 to 3 and a 3 to 5, most likely it would last an hour and a half, but just,
You could do that in one motion, and as long as the same structure is followed, I'm sure the chief would not have a problem with that.
I'm fine with that.
And I'm just double checking the order of conditions to see if there's any restrictions on the timing for that, and I don't see them.
You just need to have time in between for people to leave.
Right.
sure. Okay.
So this is kind of your first big event like this
Since I've been in charge.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, the hours are, the specified hours are Monday through Thursday, so you can designate, I don't see why you couldn't designate 1 to 5 if there's sufficient interest for 2 events.
Yep.
Sorry, I'll second the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great.
Great,
Well,
thank
good
you
luck.
so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it,
Good luck.
thank you. Hope to see you there.
All right, next up, we have the appointment of Robert Tattersall to the Historical Commission. Martha Remington.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
How are you this evening,
I'm
Martha?
fine. I don't think I have to come up to the table, but may I invite
You're always,
Mr.
you're always
Tattersall up
wel-
here?
You're always welcome.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
You
Yeah,
got my
so?
note, right? And did you get a copy of his letter and
Yes.
Stand, right?
But,
and my request?
Mhm.
Yes, we've been without 2 commissioners since Stacy and Ronick moved to Connecticut in a better position.
Mhm.
And Mr. Tattersall says he thinks he has time now to fit us into his schedule. He has a lot of good ideas about historic items.
Yeah, there's definitely, I've been meaning to volunteer for something, and I'm sure everybody's always busy, I'm always busy, but yeah, this has always been kind of an interest, and actually it was Jean Marie that one of the other members that I met on the house tour that had mentioned this to me, that you were looking for board members, and it's like,
super,
but something that's very interesting to me.
super.
Thank you for volunteering.
No, thanks for volunteering.
We need more volunteers.
Quick, we need to make a motion. Make sure we grab him.
All right, I move that we appoint Robert Tattersall to the Historical Commission.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you
very much.
Sir, are you wearing a Tattersall shirt?
I was wondering if somebody might ask that, and in general, it's a white background with lines with different colors. I'm not sure if this one's super technically, but I have bought plenty of them from
There you go.
LL Bean before. They have a Tattersall check.
Thanks much.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice evening now.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our vast agenda is a request from Bolton Access Television for the release of $26,532.26 for operation, equipment, and supplies.
And the checks that we have had come in, the most recent checks equal that amount.
Okay, yeah, actually, the number's gone down a little bit, unfortunately, but,
Well, I move that we release the total of $26,532.26 to Bolton Access Television.
Second?
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, next up, the Conservation Commission review of the proposed warrant article for the purchase of the Taggart property. Come on down.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Brian, Brian.
How are you?
So I did see, Jenny let me know that you did get a brief summary and bullet point, summary of the Taggart property. So in general, are there any questions right off the bat about the parcel or, so we went out, got the appraisal, we're waiting for the report back. It should be coming in about 2 weeks.
Now, is the estimated appraisal right now based upon what they think is buildable?
It's the current existing conditions and if it's buildable, the access to it, so taking into consideration the resources at the front, can there still be a viable access into the property and therefore can it be buildable?
And that will be part of the appraisal.
Correct.
And at our next meeting, as Rebecca said, we expect to have the appraisal in 2 weeks. So for the next meeting, the selectmen will know, I think we're pretty confident the selectmen will know what we're looking at for an actual appraisal price. So we won't be asking the selectmen to take any action tonight. This is more educational for you tonight, and so you can prepare to decide how you wish to proceed at the next meeting.
So maybe just for people at home who haven't been following this, you could just give a brief overview of where it is and what's going on. I'm sure people inside are aware of this, effort, but some people might not be following.
Sure, so I'm not going to tell the whole story from 2005 to now, but there was an interest in 2005 and it has since sparked again on the 43-acre property, which is owned by Miss Taggart, who's out in California. There's this parcel that went up for sale for quite a significant amount of money, but it's a contiguous property with quite a bit of open space that's existing, whether it's permanently protected or not, that varies within that contiguous piece. And this is 43 acres of that, totaling 114 acres along Forbush and between Forbush and Wilder Road there. This is 43 acres of that. So not only does it provide significant wildlife habitat, it also helps just border and keep our rural and scenic characteristics that the town values. And within the summary I have before you, and I'm just going to read off quickly, the Conservation Commission looked at the 6 goals of the Open Space and Recreation Plan, which was preserving rural and historical character of Bolton, protecting water resources of Bolton, preserve and encourage agriculture, if not kept in forestry, so meaning if we change the use, protect natural resources and wildlife habitat, conserve open space of public use, and provide recreation opportunities to Bolton citizens. In addition to that, other items that the Conservation Commission considers regarding open space and potential acquisition or protection is the protection of additional land in core areas. This one meets with our Wilder Pond, Forbush Mill conservation area, encouragement of agriculture, linkage with greenways and wildlife corridors, important wetland buffer acquisition, historical landscape protection, and protection of wildlife habitat parcels of interest.
that meet the 6 goals that I listed previously.
Mhm.
So it does match a lot of the items that the commission typically goes through. In addition to that, we've had residents along Wilder reach out and say, this parcel's for sale, what is the town going to do? People walk it regularly, even though it's not public. And in addition to that, they see wildlife there, there's a significant kettle pond there, there's an old rail bed at the rear of the property or the south side of the property. So it does have interest beyond just conservation purposes in the commission itself. The property owner, where it stands now, after some research, as I stated, we got an appraisal, or we went out to get an appraisal done. That will be completed in 2 weeks. The property owner has spoken with myself, along with our appraiser, just talking about what's on the property, which is nothing, it's wooded, with the kettle pond, and then the wetlands to the north and the east of the property. And in addition to that, after speaking with the property owner, she was very interested in seeing it go to a town use, whether that be for a municipal building, a school, or just strictly open space and conservation. And throughout the conversation I've had with her, that has stayed strong. Currently, it's been taken off the market. She had been approached by her realtor to put it back on the market, but she reached back out to us to figure out what our timeline was when we would hear an answer of if the town would be moving forward or not. So I explained to her that if it were to go on the warrant, of course, it would be town meeting in May, and that would be her answer. So she is trying to work with the town if we are to move forward with this. In addition to that, the research has been more research has been done on grants and funding and reimbursement for expending the amount of funds that we would need to expend without knowing the exact number. And that number, or that general understanding of the cost, was a general conversation because I stated we can't talk about numbers yet, but what are your feelings? And she said about half. So that's where we got the number that's on the holding article, and that's what we're waiting to clarify.
It was back up again, half of what, back
Half
up
of the market value, half of the value that was listed
is what she's willing to take for the property.
is what she was saying she would look for from the town, but then was saying I would be willing to work with the town. And so that's when I went to the Conservation Commission, requested that if the Conservation Commission would be interested in pursuing this further, we really need that appraisal, and if they would like to, we'll move forward. And then work on numbers again.
All right, so what you're
that's where
saying
it
is,
ended.
so in 2 weeks when we get the appraisal,
Mhm.
whatever dollar amount there is, she's willing to take roughly half of that? Or is that appraisal, is that appraisal market value, or?
So that-
It was listed for twice what she's told
Yes,
her
so
back.
Yes.
It's $1 million.
The original listing was 1.3 million, and she's been talking about 650,000.
Okay, well, but.
So
but
the
we have-
appraised
but we have-
value-
We haven't got appraised value.
No, that's why we have the appraiser.
So that's why we would be discussing again, knowing and being able to talk about numbers, because when I had that original conversation, it was more general of
Okay.
knowing you want it to go to a town use,
Right.
knowing it may stay conservation,
Mhm.
we wouldn't be paying that substantial amount of funds for it. What is your concept of
Right, okay.
what you would be able to work with?
Okay. And the property is off the market because
Currently.
I drove down last week to the transfer station and
The sign's still up.
For sale sign's still up there.
So it's not listed online.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, what interest has been garnered by other entities for that property?
What do you mean other entities, like outside of the town?
Developers. or
Developers, and,
So-
you know,
There has been no formal presentation to any of the town boards of an interest. There was an informal presentation to the planning board about a potential subdivision of the property, and that was bringing forward basically the appraised value to put it on the market.
mhm.
And that's the only thing that's come before the departments, to my understanding, and I spoke with Erica and Dawn about it.
So there was a subdivision plan
So the appraisal that was, she had an appraisal done prior to putting it on the market. And that appraisal, like many do, shows using, not necessarily considering any of the resource areas or any of the local regulations, a subdivision using the majority of the land, which isn't uncommon. Whether or not someone brings that forward and then it gets broken down by the various departments and permitted as such, that hasn't been seen or continued.
So how many feet of frontage does it have on the bush? Do you know?
I should know that off the top of my head. It has 198.
So that's you need 200 feet of frontage for one lot. But then backland lots have to be 5 acres. I think that's the zoning.
Well, to put a road in.
Right.
Or they do.
And that's what the original appraised value on her end was to put a subdivision road in, and I forget how many lots around the subdivision.
I remember seeing an old plan,
Yes.
the number of 11 comes to mind, but I think it's a long time ago.
You mentioned that it's contiguous with 110 acres that are protected or not, that are.
So I can break that down for you because I figured that question would be asked. It's 100 feet from the Tadmore open space, so the new development off of Main Street, which gives us, so we have 6.6 state land acres, which is the old reservoir. There's another 30 acres in Chapter 61 property, not including this parcel. It's actually off of Ballville.
What's
then-
chapter 61?
Chapter 61, it's in Forestry,
Okay.
so it's not permanently protected, it's in current use. Then 26 acres of conservation land and 6-acre municipal recreational parcel. So that 6 acres is the Forbush Mill Fields. And then there's 2 narrow parcels along Forbush, along the roadway, including the mill area, and that's part of that 26-acre conservation parcel.
Now, has there been any potential discussion about fundraising to offset the cost?
Yes, we have spoken with, I have spoken with Sudbury Valley trustees after speaking with the Conservation Commission. The reason why we didn't work with the Conservation Trust or go with them directly is because they thought that after the Common project and they're working on other projects continuously, they didn't have the appropriate amount of resources to be able to participate in this project, but would support it. So Sudbury Valley trustees had an interest as we're working on a workshop project with them, and they stated they would have an interest in it as well and would be willing to assist with that. But I can also go over the grants and the breakdown if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think if this does move forward, we need to get a better understanding of what Sudbury Valley trustees is going to do, because they were involved early on with the Girl Scout camp, and that did not go well.
Yes, and that is being clarified, and that's why we started this workshop project to understand and build a relationship and understand how the Conservation Commission works and the town works and what we expect through land acquisition projects, and that it's a transparent process and things aren't changed unknowingly. So the first grant is the Small Communities Grant, which we're applying for the appraisal. So the appraisal fund, the funds to pay for the appraisal came out of the Conservation Fund at the approval of the Conservation Commission. That will be reimbursed, so there will be an 80% reimbursement of the $3,900, so there is a slight loss. And that grant can also pay for a forward stewardship plan if we wish to apply for it again. So specific to the acquisition, the Conservation Fund has a remaining $31,415.96 after that appraisal, not including any reimbursement. And that, upon the commission approving that, when it comes to the acquisition, if it comes to that, that can go towards that purchase price.
Mhm.
Then there's a land grant, which is a state grant from the Division of Conservation Services. It has a reimbursement rate for the town of Bolton of 56%, but may not exceed 400,000. So the town at maximum for that grant would be able to receive 364,000. Again, none of these grants are guaranteed, it's
Right.
an application
Right.
process.
Right.
For the land grant, it considers landscape conservation, biodiversity and resource protection, recreational opportunities, water resources, working lands, which would be forestry, stewardship capacity, distribution of state resources, and bonus points for an MVP community, which
We
will
are now
hopefully
working
be.
on it.
We're working on that.
That's right.
And the next grant is a community partnership grant, which is what Sudbury Valley trustees would have to apply for, because the town and municipality cannot apply
Right.
for it. It has a 50% of the total project cost up to $85,000. So that would mean we would hope to get the full $85,000. It is for appropriate public access must be provided,
Mhm.
which it would be. Acquisition of fee interest land or conservation restriction, and part of that give and take would be Sudbury Valley trustees would hold a conservation restriction. So just like with the trust, they hold a conservation restriction, we purchase the land, vice versa, it would be a similar relationship. It also, the community partnership grant can also pay for the due diligence for the land or the conservation restriction, so if they need to do any more appraisal work, or if they need to do any other planning to work towards that, that can contribute to it.
Bless you.
The community forestry grant, which is the most competitive grant out of this list, is a federal U.S. Forestry Service grant. It has a cost sharing of 50% match of the total cost. However, the land grant can be used as that match. So as long as we were to get the land grant, we would have to wait until the spring to be able to hear back from the federal grant and be able to expend those funds. That award cannot exceed $600,000, and the town would be awarded a maximum, if they were to receive the funding, of $325,000. And that grant considers the fact that it has to create a community forest, which may be educational or open for harvest to the public, which we would do. It would include a community forest plan, which is also included within that grant. It must be threatened by development or conversion to non-forest uses, which it is by the basis that it's for sale and the previous appraisal. It must be a private forest of at least 5 acres. It must sustain natural vegetation. At least 75% of the parcel must be forested, so allowing for some subdivision if that's necessary. And it must provide a defined community benefit, and it must provide public access. So with all that being said, in a perfect world, which I know the world is not perfect, if we were to receive all the funding that we applied for, it would be able to cover the cost of the acquisition and the conservation restriction. If we weren't to receive the full funding, but we received what I would say we're relatively competitive with, we would still have about, rounded up to like $200,000 that we would be responsible for and not reimbursed for.
Right.
Again, with grants, not
Right.
guaranteed.
Right. So we would have to front all the money and
Correct.
hope to get, so we could get all of it or none of it.
Correct.
Okay? But it sounds like with all these grants of 50%, we could actually, it sounds like
It's like the producers.
Like producers, exactly.
I know.
We make money
Yeah,
on
we
it.
weren't allowed to, we weren't allowed to make money on it.
We own 192,000% of the Taggart property.
Yeah,
It's great.
exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
But we are very competitive for some of those grants. I mean, I assume the federal grant is a stretch, but it's not out of reach, but I think the state grants would be very competitive for it.
Now, other question is, why can't the town hold the conservation restriction? Why does it have to be Sudbury Valley Trust? Is it because of the one grant or?
So it can be vice versa,
Uh,
but we cannot hold a conservation restriction on land that we own.
ah,
Because
Or
it,
vice
yeah.
versa.
or vice
Or
Vice
versa.
versa,
Yeah.
right?
alright,
So that's why,
yeah, yes,
just like with the trust,
right,
it just legally, it can't be done. And it sort of defeats the purpose of having the conservation restriction.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
In addition to that, just for your knowledge as well, because I'm sure it will
I'll
be
hold
coming
it.
up. The federal designation that we received for the Wild and Scenic River does give us a leg up because we have federal designation. This is within the National River Watershed. In addition to that, that stewardship council associated with the Wild and Scenic River that I sit on for the town, they are working on a forest legacy grant, which is even more competitive, but they are gathering 1,000 acres for that grant, and this could potentially be one of the parcels that is pushed through that.
The stream that runs through this property goes down behind the Fort Bush Fields, and it is incredibly clear and cold. And it's an amazing stream.
So it is a cold water fishery.
No, it is. It's surprising in the summer when you're there for soccer. It's very chilly. It does not warm up. I'm sure the fish love it. Yeah.
Well, then, we put a brewery on the
So unless the board has any questions for
Yeah.
Rebecca tonight, the goal is to have Rebecca and Brian and whoever else back in 2
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah,
And, where the board will be doing, and just so you know, Brian, I talked to Rebecca through this earlier, but at the next meeting, we do a full walkthrough of the warrant with town council here and with the town moderator here.
Yep.
And when we get to the point in the warrant where the article would be, then there'll be a more detailed discussion, and you'll be invited back up to fill in whatever gaps there are. So the selectmen can make an informed decision on how they'd like to proceed.
And is there any, now after hearing a rambling of information, I'm sure, is there any other questions or things just right off the bat that you would like addressed before next meeting, aside from the appraisal, obviously?
Well, I'm encouraged by the project. I'd like to see it go forward pending the results of the appraisal. But I'd like to see more detail about what this piece of land offers.
Okay.
What's here is very compelling, but it's also very high level.
Mhm.
So if there's more that you can tell us and the community at large about the benefits that we accrue from acquiring this property, I think that would be helpful.
Sure, I can do that, no problem.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
nice evening.
Thank you, you as well.
All right, next up is the town administrator report.
Okay, let's see, first, the truck exclusion update. Town of Berlin asked for a site meeting with our DPW director, Joe Lynch, and our engineer. The feedback that I'm getting is that they don't have any major concerns with the proposal, but they would like to discuss potentially some signage and talk about where some signage could be placed. And I've assured them that if signage is the concern, we can certainly accommodate them.
Yep.
So it would be a site visit to the intersection?
No, actually to Berlin, because the truck traffic would, the assumption is more truck traffic will be going over Route 62 through Berlin. So where they might like to see some additional signage. And we're certainly amenable to that, if that's what gets the deal done. I'll be in Clinton Town Hall tomorrow to vote and to turn in my census. So while I'm there, I'm gonna seek an update on where Clinton is in their process. But the feedback I'm getting from Berlin is encouraging.
Good, okay.
And I appreciate their open-mindedness. That's just a couple of things before I go down the list. Last night, at the school committee meeting, the school committee, they have not voted the budget yet, but the superintendent presented her budget plan. Also had the public hearing last night, the required public hearing, and right now, Bolton's assessment is at 3%. even, as was requested by the Board of Selectmen. Lancaster, I believe, was 2.77, and Stowe, I believe, was 1.25. So we're where we were asked to be, which with all the modeling we've been doing with the budget, we've had a 3% placeholder in there. So now that we know that it appears to be or about to be a reality, we're doing some modeling and looking at the budget as a whole. We're certainly encouraged. Also, just parenthetically, would like to add, since I gave an update at the last meeting, as far as the Cobham property goes, where potentially a marijuana facility may look to go, I still have not received any proposal of any sort from the potential applicant, nor have I had any further discussions with them. So there are no new developments in the past 2 weeks of any sort. Next, I'm going to go with the bottom bullet, which is the acknowledgement of receipt of the plot plan for an accessory apartment addition at 269 Harvard Road. Our bylaws say that accessory use apartments need to be filed with the Board of Selectmen. So this is a procedural process. The building inspector has reviewed. The only way I could keep the door shut is to lock it. Otherwise I was gonna break. So, while Mike has not done the final inspection, everything meets requirements. There's no reason to believe it won't meet requirements. It comports with the bylaw, so the recommendation is that the selectmen vote to acknowledge receipt of the plot, of the plot plan.
Yep, great.
Okay, so I move that we acknowledge receipt of the plot plan for 269 Harvard Road.
I'll just make a note, it really doesn't show very much in terms of like the existing dwelling and the addition.
No, that includes the addition.
I know, but how do you know, I mean, as a document, like how do I know where the addition is if we're?
No, but it's the plot plan, so,
That's what they have to file.
yeah.
And I did confirm with Mike that it adheres to the bylaws, less than 1/3 of the total size of the existing structure.
Yeah, it's somewhere in there.
Okay.
It's part of the existing structure. It's not a separate building.
Right.
Since the bylaws not really clear what we're asking them to submit, I think.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And lastly, although this is not one of my stated goals, one thing I told the selectmen I wanted to work on this year was a study of converting our streetlights to LED from pressure sodium. So I asked Joe to meet with National Grid with me. So the three of us have met, our National Grid rep, Joe and myself, we've met multiple times. And I've evaluated the value of converting the streetlights and having National Grid continue to own them, and us taking possession of the streetlights, not the poles, but the streetlights, us owning them, paying for the conversion and so forth. I mean, bearing in mind, we're only talking about 40 lights. We don't have a lot of streetlights in town. The economy of scale isn't there for us to acquire them and maintain them. It just doesn't, financially it doesn't make sense. And it can impact our insurance. So any potential minor savings we could have could be wiped out by increased insurance premiums. So that being said, the existing lights right now are 50-watt high-pressure sodium, which produces 2,560 lumens per light. If we were to switch to 25-watt LED, it produces 2,600 lumens per light, which is about 1.5% more light, so it's virtually even. If we went to 20-watt LED, it produces 2,112 lumens, or 82.5% of the existing light. So it makes the most sense to me to convert to the 25-watt LED. As National Grid has said, when you convert to LED, the new LEDs, it's a white light as opposed to light now that has a sort of a pinkish tone to it. And initially, it will appear to be brighter because it's a white light, but people's eyes adjust to it, and within a week or two, it no longer seems as bright as it may seem at first. And I think I mentioned before, we did do one of these as a secret test when we put the new light on the pole at Classic Pizza when we were trying to illuminate the area where the kids run across at night from the school, and no one even noticed that we did it. So, if you were to authorize me to begin the process to convert the streetlights to 25-watt LEDs, the annual savings that we're talking about is $639.31, and we would get a one-time rebate of approximately $1,769. So we would save a little bit of money, certainly from an environmental standpoint. We're using LED, which is what we want. We're a green community. So to me, it just supports all of our green initiatives, and it would make sense for us to do.
What's the price tag?
But there's no cost to convert. National Grid pays the cost of conversion, and we save about $600 a year on our bill, and we get a one-time rebate of $1,769.
It's like the producers.
Exactly.
We're going to 147% of those lights. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's no cash outlay of any kind for the town.
There you go.
Hold me, touch me.
Well, I would,
Yeah.
I would move to follow the town administrator's recommendation to convert the streetlights to LED.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And just as an FYI, before I wrap up the green discussion, I am in the same talks, we're working with National Grid about the potential cost of and siting of a charging station for electronic vehicles. I have some thoughts as to where I think the right location is. I don't want to do the reveal yet, but at the end of the day, with the different grants and rebates and so forth, and what National Grid is willing to do, it appears that we could do one for almost no money. It wouldn't be zero like this, but it would be. It looks like a low dollar amount.
Okay.
So you'll be hearing more on that one.
Okay, super.
So unless the board has any questions for me, that's all I have tonight.
No.
All right. Next up is Board of Selectmen business. Any public service announcements?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Don't forget, caucus is next Monday at the library,
At the library.
so come on down.
7:30.
7:30.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll be looking for a new school board member.
We will be
That's
looking.
right.
Oh, that's right. I have my notes
Yeah,
right here.
so there you go.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. With all the advance notice, there'll be dozens of people lining up for that one.
All right. All right, so next up is the acceptance of the gift of the pavilion at the town common. Bert, I would assume.
Yeah.
You're down here for that.
Nice to see you're on TV and here, you're not on TV anywhere else.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
here.
No,
Well-
no, it's running through the PSAs for the library, some very jaunty music, but.
Okay. How are you, Bert?
I'm pretty good, how are you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well.
Yes, the pavilion is built. We've gotten our reimbursement from the MCC, the Mass Cultural Council, who generously paid for half of it through a grant. And we would like to move the ownership over to the town along with the rest of the common, because we've been going
Yeah.
through this.
That's
And,
great.
so we need you to accept the gift.
Thank you very much. It's been working well.
You came up beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's,
The tree lighting.
Hmm?
At the tree lighting, everybody was in there. There's music,
yeah, no, it worked
workshop,
really well for the
very
tree light,
festive.
with the tree lighting this year, it gave us, gave people a place to set up and the rest of that. And and I think it's an addition to the common. And Parks and Recs is doing a good job managing the common and the rest of
Yeah.
that, so, yeah, we'd like to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
So I would move that we accept the gift of the pavilion at the town common from the Conservation Trust.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you, Bert.
Thank everybody at the trust.
We will, yeah. See you Monday night.
Yes, see you Monday night.
But now we only need 24 more.
And next up is the review of the annual report. So,
You did that primarily, I mean, substantially at the last meeting, there were a few
Yeah.
tweaks.
a few tweaks. I know that Jenny has sort of like two versions of it, because we talked, about adding a couple of folks, which I did. And then we also talked potentially that some of the additions to town hall staff you would deal with in yours, so.
I have all the town hall staff in mind, so really the question is, do you want to mirror that in yours or not?
Or give you the honors. So I think what's in our packet is without all the extras. So whatever you gentlemen would like, because probably doesn't need to be in two places.
No, I'm fine with the report as presented.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We make a motion to approve the annual report for the selectmen annual report.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is the review of the annual town warrant. Is there anything different?
Very little. If we could just turn to Article, well, just as an update, Article 19 on page 12, we await the wording of the article and the summary from the school district. I expect to have that by the next meeting. Article 20, the community choice aggregation. This is the wording that was submitted to us by the chairman of the subcommittee. It's being reviewed by
Okay.
town council, and we've not gotten an update from him as of yet.
Okay.
Article 21, placeholder for the mosquito response committee. The committee's public meeting will be next Thursday at 7 o'clock at the Florence Sawyer School, so subsequent to that meeting,
Okay.
we'll be receiving a proposed article from the committee.
Okay.
And I believe those represents our update, unless Jenny tells me I forgot something.
And
I owe Jenny a summary, but that's not, if it's not in there, that's not an update.
do we have to modify Article 22 for the additional school committee members?
We probably do. We'll have to discuss that with Pam, but that's a good point.
So, probably two.
Article 12, we would need one, because this is an off year with two school committee reps.
Right.
Nobody was up for reelection, so we need to have one school committee rep for a 3-year term.
All right, well, if there's one already here, so,
Then we,
but is it that we don't have one coming up, or was it?
yeah, this was an off year, we didn't have one coming up.
All right, so that was already anticipated?
If-
Just left over from the copy they used last year.
Well, if you prefer to deal in
It's a
facts, then
template.
Okay,
Then fine.
wow, what savants we are. That's
we
all right.
foresaw this a year ago.
There you go. All right, cool. Hey,
but we-
I'll take it, I'll
But
take
we
it.
already stipulate that Jonathan is not currently the chair, and we'll be changing that signature line to reflect that Stan is the chair.
All right, there you go. Okay, so, I think we're done with that for
We are.
now. Okay, so, next up, to approve the bills and the payroll warrants, W 2017, W 2017A, W 2018, and W 2018A.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and do we have any minutes?
We do not,
Okay.
but you guys are not late, we still have 5 days left to the.
The clock is still ticking.
We are totally within our process,
Wow, I'm talking with that process.
which
You
is,
have to call up Linda and tell her.
we're working like a well-oiled machine here.
Wow.
I'll start on that one.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I believe we do not need
We
our
do not require the
executive
executive
session.
session today.
All right, Even though we don't necessarily need to all sign this, we're just doing our civic duty.
That's true.
Warrants will always be brought for viewing.
Yep. All right, so any other selectmen business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Last meeting.
It was.
Great.
Next meeting, bring food. It'll be a long one.
No, midnight.
It'll be a long one. Well,
Food, sleeping bag.
it's always longer when we do the complete walkthrough of the warrant with town council and the town moderator here. And
Yeah.
that'll be the primary thing on the agenda. We do need a